So the book Steal Like an Artist is really good, but I think if you're a complete beginner, it doesn't really have much like straightforward advice for what to do. It's more like inspirational quotes and just like getting you energized. So I found that when I did my Steal Like an Artist for a Week challenge, the first couple days were just like, I don't even know what that means really, like what the hell do I do? And then I figured some stuff out. And then researching this video, I found that there are actually 3 kind of traditional ways from the Renaissance era of stealing like an artist. Jump to this timestamp if you just want to get straight to the advice, but I wanted to do a kind of intro section on how we lost this ability, because from my research that I've done, it seems like in the Roman and like Greek times in the Renaissance period, copying was just like a completely normal thing to do as a beginner. And then over time and to this day, we've kind of completely moved away from that, where copying and imitating is just really looked down on in a way that I think is actually really disempowering to beginners and normal people. So back in the Renaissance period in Italy, if you were going to train to be an artist, you'd enter a workshop called a bottega and do an apprenticeship that would last normally 2 to 3 years. And when you join a workshop, you'd be called a garzone, which is like an apprentice. And there were multiple levels of skill that you'd progress through. And in one of these apprenticeships, the first thing you do would be copying the works of the master. So there'd be a master who runs the workshop and you just copy out their drawings, and that would be like an essential part of the learning. And then you'd progress from there to drawing sculptures. So you'd have a sculpture and you'd do the drawing. So you're not copying someone else's drawing, you're doing your own. So you move to becoming more original and doing your own stuff, but you literally start with copying. And after the 2 or 3 years, if you produced a masterpiece, literally a piece of art that proves that you have mastered the craft, then you progress from garzone to journeyman, and you can open your own shop and then employ your own apprentices. So this just got me thinking, like, it feels like the modern approach to creativity and making music in my case is completely flipped, because it's like you kind of enter thinking that you should be able to make your masterpiece straight away, or like if you make something bad, that's just evidence that you're shit. Whereas this Renaissance model is just like, yeah, you spend 2 to 3 years as a garzone, an apprentice, where mostly you're copying and doing stuff for the master, and then eventually you've learned enough skills that you can make something of note, which then progresses you to the next level. So this gave me the idea of like, oh, I'm not shit, I'm just like in my garzone era. That's like completely fine. And then after the Renaissance we had the Enlightenment, and then after the Enlightenment came the Romantic era, and this gave us 2 ideas that I think we're still suffering under, which really suck if you're like trying to be creative. One is Romanticism really involved like rejection of imitation and copying. There's a quote from this academic paper: derivative art was highly disregarded by Romantics, who believed the influence of works of other artists stood in the way of creativity. And this is completely opposed to Roman, ancient Greek, and Renaissance attitudes, which were much more like art is about building upon previous classics and improving them and emulating them. So in addition to the idea from the Romantic period of like copying is bad and originality is what's important, we also got the idea of artistic genius, which was kind of an invented concept apparently from German Romantics in this time period. I have this quote: the idea of original genius was introduced by German Romantics, who portrayed the artist as a special being with unique visionary powers. That's kind of just the feeling I've always had. Like some artists, Kendrick Lamar, etc., are just visionaries and like are incredible and are on some elevated plane. I think like celebrity culture gives us this narrative as well. And then I'm just like, man, I'm just like a normal person. That sucks. Like I don't want to just be some random dude. But it's actually really kind of revolutionary in a way for me to read that this is just a construct. Like it's just been my assumption, like this is true. This is the way the world is. So it's kind of cool to be like, oh, that idea was invented at a certain point. So to me, it feels like the Renaissance period that's kind of like the growth mindset. Like you start as an apprentice, you're not very good, you copy lots, and then you improve. And then at a certain point, you can generate your own masterpiece, which proves that you're now worthy of opening your own shop. And then the Romantic view is much more like some people are geniuses, some aren't. Like that's very fixed mindset and incredibly limiting. Okay, so now moving on to the 3 ways to steal like an artist. There's a quote from this book, The End of Early Music, that says, imitating artworks of the past is what the Renaissance was all about. And then it breaks down the 3 ways that they would imitate back then. They have Italian terms. I'm gonna rename them. The first one is replicating, like making exact replicas, which is just such great advice if you're a total beginner, because as I've said in other videos, like if you imagine making a song being like making a statue, it's very difficult to do that from scratch. Whereas yeah, you could copy a song as close as you can. And that's just a really useful way to learn, because you'll be like, oh, I want to remake this Mac DeMarco song. And then you go down various rabbit holes of like, how do I get his guitar tone? Like, what does he do to his vocals? Like, what drum machine is he using on this song? It's just like a really useful way to learn as you go. I also find it to be like really non-daunting and like very energizing, because you just have a very clear goal. Like, okay, I'm going to remake this song. Like, nice. There's no creative block. There's no doubt. It's just like, okay, cool. I guess I'll start with the drums, and then you just go from there and you pick stuff up as you go. It's great. So there's a really good video called The Single Fastest Way to Improve as a Producer. This is like my 10th take trying to say that. I don't know why it's such a tongue twister. The video is just him saying, remake songs. Like, this is it. And it's advice from like the top producers. And the comment section on that video is just full of people being like, yeah, totally agree. And yeah, for whatever reason, it's obvious that if you want to learn the guitar, you like learn the songs you like. That's just considered normal. But I find with like music production, there's much more a feeling of you learn the software and then you have to make your own stuff straight away. And it's, I think, really useful to be like, no, I'm a Garzoni. I'm like a complete amateur apprentice, and I'm just going to replicate works by masters instead of trying to like make my own masterpiece straight away. The second way is it's called eclectic borrowing. And yeah, this is what I talked about in my last video of just taking 3 songs you love, blowing them up, and then like creating something new from the rubble. And then it will have like some of your originality on top as well, because you made it. And this, you could just argue that this is all of art. Like, there's the quote, everything is a remix. And yeah, I've done this now, and it's just like, oh yeah, if you take the drums from this song, the chord progression from another one, the vocal melody from another, it can cohere into something cool and new. And it's a similar thing of you're not staring at a blank canvas. It feels very empowering. And the third and final way to steal like an artist, as recommended by Renaissance artists, is it's called emulation or emulatio. It's basically copying with improvement or enhancement. I think this is obviously the hardest one to do. I think you need like a pretty decent level of skill to like take a song you like and then improve or enhance it. But I guess an example could be like, oh, I love the way the song sounds, but the lyrics aren't quite my style, or I just don't like the song topic. So then you can improve it in your eyes. But yeah, I think just like doing the first 2 for a while seems to be the way to go. I've tried a little bit of like taking a song I love and just tweaking it. And for me, I've so far just found I've made the songs worse. So I'm going to leave this one for the time being, but it's like, I don't know, good to know about. So that's the 3. Like, I feel like I haven't gone into that much detail, but they're pretty self-explanatory, I'd say. I'd highly recommend just trying them out. I'd say the 3 types of copying are in order of difficulty too. So it makes complete sense as a beginner to start with exact replicas and then move to the eclectic borrowing. And then, yeah, I have no plan to touch the 3rd one for a while, but we'll see. So this video actually started as I was doing a weekly challenge of remaking the same song by The Strokes every day for a week before I even knew about this Renaissance framework. So it was really useful and good for the first 2 days, and then I got really sick of the song and just couldn't face it. So it actually pushed me into making my own song, which was inspired by the one I was copying. It was actually really good. So it was a case of doing exact replication and then shifting to eclectic borrowing. And yeah, I just highly recommend it. So yeah, the next video I'll break that down, and yeah, see you there. Bye bye.